So the Simian line is essentially a heart line and a headline that's combined. And you can see here, that's what's happened here on the left hand, and it's not quite the same on the right. It's more common to see a Simian line in one hand only. It's quite rare to see it in both. So before I explain what the Simian line means, first of all, I need to explain a little bit around the positioning of the head and the heart line, because it's relevant here, because essentially a head and a heart line combined is a Simian line. So when you have a headline that's quite high up on the palm, generally speaking, what happens is the heart line also is sort of pushed up the palm a little bit, and that reduces the emotional zone, if you like, the ability to emotionally express, and the capacity for love is reduced, and emotional intelligence, I suppose, and it makes a person have difficulties within sort of closer relationships. But the pro to this is that the mental zone is increased. Look at this area here; it's now huge. That's not what's happened here, even though with this person, the headline does begin quite sort of high up on the palm. It hasn't actually pushed the heart line upwards. No, actually, this person has an excellent capacity to love, and probably is likely highly emotionally intelligent and aware and very sensitive, a very sort of caring nature. Other signs show that in this person's palm as well, what with the sympathy and the healing stigmata and other things. And I've already read this person's palm, but I wanted to provide an example around the Simian line here. And so that's a little bit of an explanation as to around the positioning of the head and the heart line. Similarly, when you have a low set headline, it can bring the heart line down a little bit on the palm, and that has the opposite effect. So increases the emotional at the expense of the mental zones. So effectively, the Simian line, as I say, it's the head and the heart line combined. So what you have is a lower heart line and a higher headline, and so it creates quite an intense sort of nature, and particularly as the headline reaches the other side of the palm, and in this case, sort of outer Mars. So it creates that kind of value around gaining sort of material security. That's the sort of the plan, if you like, being outer Mars. But what's happened here is essentially the headline um, is higher up on the palm, um, at the so the emotional zone is enlarged at the expense of the mental zone, and you can see that actually this mental zone, it's quite large out here. So it with this person, I suppose, had it done this, you'd see a smaller mental zone and a larger emotional zone. But actually, what's happened here is this person's simian line is not too high up on the palm. It's just right, really, and it's allowed this person to focus with intensity without any of the cons, I suppose, of having a simian line. So the effect of having a combined head and heart line is quite a complex one, because it means that it can create a sort of suspicious and demanding and self-centered nature within the individual. And there will be other signs in the palm that either strengthen that theory or in fact, negate that. So it's always important, and I say this quite a lot in palmistry, to never diagnose by one sign or symptom alone. You have to look at the whole picture. You can't just say, well, you've got this, and so that means that this is going to happen. That's for the sensationalist amateur who is trying to exploit and just sort of gain views or following or money or whatever. But what the Simian line does offer the hand's owner is the ability to concentrate on one task at a time with an immense intensity and focus, and complete tasks with 100% of their um, mental and emotional focus at the same time. And what it also means is that when they are so focused on their one task, they are completely unreachable. They won't even hear others around them. Other signs in the palm will, either corroborate or negate that theory. And so, with that in mind, they are 100%. They are all or nothing. Nothing is half-hearted. They expect the very best of themselves, and so they expect the very best in others. And so this can create issues within relationships, because they can become a bit all-encompassing, a bit too much, and try to absorb the partner into the self. And this is partly because, this is quite hard to explain, it's partly because they become so absorbed in the tasks, in the um, in the projects, in the work that they're invested in. They become completely 100% absorbed. So when it comes to personal relationships, they also become absorbed. And so this all or nothing nature means that they are all for a person or all against a person. There's no middle ground there. And so when they choose someone in life, they either they are all for them, so they are completely throw themselves into that relationship, their mind, body, and soul, and so they expect the very same from their partner, which is fair. This can make a person with a Simian line highly vulnerable, especially if the emotional zone is enlarged at the expense of the mental zone. And as we see on this person's right palm, this is compensated. You can actually see that the three major palmar lines are in balance with each other. However, the emotional zone is quite large. The palm itself is long with short fingers. It's undoubtedly a fire hand. And so, being long palm, this person is a strong feeler, highly instinctive, very sensitive, very caring nature. So, that being said, it makes this person very vulnerable in relationships, and their partner will need to identify with the things that they have invested in. Their partner, it's important for this person, for their partner, to strongly identify with their goals, their aims, and their desires, and to never turn a blind eye to what's important to this person, and also to never look at another woman. Otherwise, it could spell disaster. And that might sound a bit extreme. This person is completely and utterly invested in whatever it is they do and whoever they choose. So it's extremely important for their partner to be on that same page, that same wavelength. Now, if the Simian line is found on the left hand only, as we have in this case, it creates difficulties within the domestic environment, within relationships, within personal and family life. It can create, how do I put this? It can create suspicion. But with that, this person is highly logical, and their thinking is sort of combined with their feeling. Now, if the Simian line is found in both the left and the right hand, it can create these same issues within the home and work environment. We don't see that here on the right hand. So in some respects, the Simian line on the left will complement the abilities in the work life. There's always a pro and a con. If found in both palms, and as I say, this is quite rare, it does mean a person's thoughts, their feelings are combined, and so they become extremely sort of defensive, and they don't like their ideas challenged because they're so emotionally invested in them, more so than most. And so they surround themselves by with people who won't challenge their authority, weak people, essentially. Um, and so it's much better to have it in the one palm than both. So the best possible example, potentially, of the Simian line is where the heart line kind of branches off from the two merged lines, and the headline kind of reaches out of it. So you have this, yes, you have this single-minded approach, but you also have this degree of sympathy, that's sort of leveled out. It levels out this approach of projecting own thoughts and feelings onto others. So always remember that the left palm shows us what's internal and the right shows us what's external. The left is emotional, psychological, and the right is how those same events, feelings, thoughts, desires transpire into the physical, material world, and how they affect our status and our wealth, our environment, and those around us. So that's all for this video on the Simian line. I just wanted to explain a few things here around something that has quite a lot of misconceptions, and this is partly due to the early research that was done into this. There's a lot of association with apes in this line, and that kind of feeling of, there's a lot written about it as though there's a connection when people have this line, they are in some way emotionally unstable and sort of dangerous and reactive, and that's just not true. There's a lot around palmistry which there's still a lot of work to be done, and modernizing, because people are still to this day rehashing from medieval texts, and I've seen this a lot where highly kind of vouched for palmists have rehashed the work of others who have rehashed the work of others, and the chain just goes on. And what we really need to be doing is looking at people who have started at the beginning, and carried out their own research. So Charlotte Wolfe did this, Darpantigny did this as well, and it's not to say that they are correct about everything, but it's important to do the same, I suppose. And this is what I try and do. I look at, I read things, I take things into account, but I try and look at things holistically and experiment on my own. When something works enough, I stick with it. When something doesn't, when I make a mistake, that's where I reevaluate. And it's only through our mistakes that we learn. And I'm learning all the time, as I hope you are. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Let me know your thoughts, and thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one.